I'm Emma Torres, 33, and for as long as I can remember, my place in this family has been nothing more than a footnote. Tonight, at my father's 58th birthday celebration in Portland's most elegant venue, I sat alone at a corner table staring down at a basket of stale breadsticks. The irony wasn't lost on me. These weren't just any breadsticks. They came from my father's own restaurant, Torres Family Dining, the empire he'd spent decades building. Around me, crystal glasses clinked and laughter filled the air like music I wasn't invited to dance to. 65 guests, all dressed in their finest, mingled under string lights that cast golden shadows across the room's exposed wooden beams. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the distant peaks of the Cascades, painted purple and orange by the setting sun. It should have been beautiful. It should have felt like home. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Instead, I felt like a stranger at my own father's party. Linda, my stepmother, glided past my table in a silk dress that probably cost more than my rent. She didn't even glance my way. But I knew she'd arranged this seating. She'd chosen these stale breadsticks specifically for me. A message wrapped in carbs. You don't belong here. You never did. My stepsister Jessica held court at the main table, her laugh too loud, her smile too bright for the cameras she knew were always watching. At 29, she'd built an entire persona around being the perfect daughter, the social media darling, the heir to the Torres legacy. Her boyfriend Tyler sat beside her, his hand possessive on her shoulder, his grin sharp as a blade. They looked like royalty, and I looked like the help. But here's what none of them knew. Here's what made my heart hammer against my ribs like it was trying to escape. In the small leather bag tucked under my chair, I had a USB drive. On that drive was everything. Every text message. Every forged signature. Every secret meeting captured on video. Every piece of evidence that proved Linda and Jessica weren't just cruel. They were thieves. And tonight, in front of Portland's elite, in front of my father's business partners and friends, and the people who'd spent years watching them treat me like I was invisible, I was going to show them all exactly who they really were. The weight of that USB drive felt heavier than it should. A small piece of plastic and metal that held the power to shatter everything. I watched Jessica toss her hair back, posing for a selfie with some of Dad's business associates, and I wondered if she had any idea what was coming. Probably not. Jessica had spent her entire life skating by on charm and Linda's manipulation. Consequences were things that happened to other people. The room buzzed with energy. Waiters in crisp white shirts moved between tables, carrying trays of appetizers from Dad's flagship restaurant downtown. The Cascade room lived up to its reputation. Vaulted ceilings, that signature Pacific Northwest blend of rustic and refined. Someone had hung paper lanterns from the beams, and they swayed slightly in the breeze from the open balcony doors. Mountains stood silent in the distance, witnesses to what was about to unfold. I'd almost deleted the email when it arrived 3 weeks ago. The invitation came from Linda, her words formal and cold, like I was a business acquaintance rather than family. You are invited to celebrate Robert Torres's 58th birthday. The Cascade room. Cocktail attire. My first instinct was to pretend I'd never seen it. I'd spent years avoiding these gatherings, these painful reminders of how little I mattered to them. But then Rachel called. Rachel Kim had been my best friend since high school, back when we were both art nerds spending lunch periods in the computer lab. She'd gone into web development. I'd chosen graphic design. We'd stayed close even as our lives diverged, and she was one of the few people who really understood what my family had put me through. Rachel didn't mince words when I told her about the invitation. You're going, she said, her voice firm through the phone. I could hear her keyboard clicking in the background. She was always multitasking. I don't know, Rach. It's just going to be another night of them pretending I don't exist. Then make them see you, she shot back. You've spent your whole life letting them write you out of the story. Maybe it's time you took the pen back. Her words stayed with me. Took the pen back. I'd spent years building a career as a freelance graphic designer, creating brand identities for small businesses across Portland. My work was good. I knew it was good. But I'd done it all in the shadow of Jessica's Instagram fame and Linda's social climbing. They'd made sure I knew that real success looked like them. polished, connected, wealthy. Not like me, hunched over my laptop in my Pearl District studio, living off ramen and cold brew coffee. But Rachel was right. I wasn't that scared kid anymore. I'd built something real, something mine. And maybe it was time to stop hiding from the people who'd tried to make me small. The decision to attend the party was just the beginning. What came next changed everything. It started 2 weeks before the celebration. Rachel and I were at Riverside Cafe, our usual spot along the Willamette River. The late afternoon sun caught the water, turning it silver. Rachel had her laptop open, fingers flying across the keys. She did freelance web security consulting on the side, and she had a particular talent for finding digital breadcrumbs people thought they'd hidden. Remember how Jessica always uses the same password for everything? Rachel asked, not looking up from her screen. I frowned. How would you know that? Because she posted about it once. One of those dumb social media trends. My password is my dog's name backwards plus my lucky number. Rachel finally looked at me, one eyebrow raised. Her dog was named Bella. Her lucky number has been 7 since we were in high school. I felt my stomach flip. You're not suggesting what I think you're suggesting. I'm not suggesting anything, Rachel said carefully. I'm just saying that Jessica has a cloud storage account. And if someone hypothetically accessed it, they might hypothetically find some very interesting files. This was crossing a line. I knew it was crossing a line. But something in me, some part that had been quiet for too long, whispered that maybe lines were meant to be crossed when people were planning something terrible. What kind of files? I asked. Rachel's smile was sharp. Let's find out. That night in my apartment, surrounded by my design work and empty coffee cups, Rachel and I dug into Jessica's digital life. It felt wrong at first. Invasive. But then we found the first message. A text chain between Jessica and Tyler, dated just 3 weeks prior. Everything's set, Jessica had written. The franchise agreements are ready. Dad won't even know until it's too late. Tyler's response was worse. Linda said she can forge his signature perfectly. 20 locations already interested. We'll be millionaires before he figures it out. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. What are they talking about? Rachel scrolled further. Looks like they're planning to franchise your dad's restaurant concept. But not under his company. Under Jessica's LLC. They're stealing his brand, his recipes, his reputation. Everything he built. And they're cutting him out completely. The words didn't make sense at first. My father had built Torres Family Dining from a single location into 12 restaurants across the Pacific Northwest. It had taken him 30 years of early mornings and late nights, of perfecting recipes and building relationships with suppliers, of training staff and maintaining quality. It was his legacy, his life's work. And they were trying to steal it. We kept digging. The more we found, the worse it got. Documents showing franchise agreements with Jessica's company name. Bank statements revealing money flowing into accounts under her control. Emails between Linda and a lawyer, discussing how to make the paperwork look legitimate. Text messages where Tyler joked about how easy it was to fool the old man. That phrase made my blood boil. The old man. My father, who'd given Linda everything after my mother died. Who'd paid for Jessica's entire lifestyle, her influencer dreams, her endless shopping trips. Who'd never said no to either of them, even when they treated his actual daughter like garbage. There was more. A video file tucked away in preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Jessica's cloud storage. Rachel opened it, and we watched in silence. It was security footage from one of Dad's restaurants, the flagship location downtown. The timestamp showed it was from 2 weeks ago, late at night after closing. Jessica and Tyler sat in a booth, papers spread across the table. We need to move fast, Jessica was saying. Once the first franchises open, he'll find out. But by then, we'll have signed agreements. He can't stop us. Linda promised she'd handle him if he makes a fuss. Tyler leaned back, grinning. Your mom's scary when she wants to be. That's why this'll work. She knows how to manipulate him. Always has. The video was damning. Clear audio. Clear video. Undeniable proof of conspiracy. Rachel looked at me, her expression serious. Emma, this is bigger than you. This is fraud. If they pull this off, your dad loses everything. Not just money. His reputation. His life's work. All of it. I thought about my father. Robert Torres wasn't perfect. He'd let Linda and Jessica push me aside for years without fighting for me. He'd been absent when I needed him, too focused on building his business to notice his daughter fading into the background. But he didn't deserve this. Nobody deserved this. What do I do with this? I asked. Rachel closed her laptop. You expose them. Publicly. Make it so they can't lie their way out. I need more, I said. Video from a security camera might not be enough. They'll say it's taken out of context, or that we're lying about what they meant. We need them on record, admitting it clearly. Rachel grinned. Then let's get them on record. The next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed Jessica. She'd posted on Instagram about meeting friends at a wine bar in the Alberta Arts District, one of those trendy spots with exposed brick and Edison bulbs. Rachel came with me, her phone ready to record. We found a table in the corner with a clear view of where Jessica sat with Tyler. They were alone, waiting for others who apparently were running late. Perfect timing. Rachel positioned her phone carefully, the camera aimed at their table. The audio wouldn't be perfect, but it would be enough. We ordered wine we couldn't really afford and pretended to be absorbed in conversation, while keeping our ears trained on Jessica and Tyler. At first, they talked about nothing important. Some Instagram collaboration Jessica was excited about. Tyler's complaints about his job. Normal couple stuff. Then Jessica leaned in, her voice dropping. Did your lawyer friend look at the contracts? Tyler nodded. He said they're airtight. Once your dad signs what he thinks are routine supplier agreements, we're golden. The franchise rights transfer to your company, and there's nothing he can do about it. Jessica smiled, and it was a smile I'd seen 1,000 times. Satisfied. Cruel. Linda's meeting with him tomorrow. She'll slip the papers into his usual stack of documents. He never reads them carefully anymore. Just signs and moves on. What if he notices? Tyler asked. He won't, Jessica said confidently. And even if he does eventually, we'll already have contracts signed with 20 franchise owners. We'll have their money. He can't unring that bell. My hand clenched around my wine glass, so hard I thought it might shatter. Rachel caught my eye and gave a small nod. She was getting all of this. What about Emma? Tyler asked, and my attention snapped back. Does she know anything? Jessica laughed. A real laugh, loud enough that other people glanced over. Emma? Please. She's so caught up in her little graphic design projects, she barely knows what day it is. Besides, Dad would never tell her anything important. She's not really family. Not like us. The words hit like a slap. Not really family. I'd heard variations of that my entire life, but hearing it stated so plainly, so casually, made something inside me crack and then reform, harder than before. Tyler seemed satisfied. Good. The last thing we need is her getting nosy. Though honestly, even if she found out, who'd believe her? Everyone knows she's always been jealous of you. We stayed another 20 minutes, but they'd moved on to other topics. Rachel stopped recording and we left quietly, walking to her car in silence. Once inside, she turned to me. You okay? No, I said honestly. But I will be. We spent the next week preparing. Rachel helped me compile everything into a clean, organized presentation. Screenshots of text messages with timestamps. The security footage from the restaurant. The audio from the wine bar. Copies of the forged documents we'd found in Jessica's cloud storage. Everything arranged in a timeline that told the complete story. I created the video presentation myself, using my design skills to make it clear and undeniable. Text overlays. Audio clips. Visual proof. No room for misinterpretation. No way for them to twist the narrative. The USB drive felt like it weighed 100 pounds when Rachel handed it to me the night before the party. This is going to change everything, she said quietly. I know. Are you ready? I thought about all the years of being invisible. All the times Linda had made sure I knew I wasn't good enough. All the moments Jessica had smirked at my failures and ignored my successes. All the times Dad had chosen them over me without even realizing he was making a choice. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. The day of the party arrived with typical Pacific Northwest weather. Gray morning that burned off into brilliant sunshine by afternoon. I spent hours getting ready, not because I cared what they thought of my appearance, but because I needed the ritual. The armor of looking put together, even when I felt like I might fall apart. I chose a simple black dress. Nothing flashy. I wasn't trying to compete with Jessica's designer outfit or Linda's expensive taste. I was trying to disappear just enough that they wouldn't see me coming. Rachel called as I was finishing my makeup. "You've got this," she said. "Remember, you're not doing this for revenge. You're doing this because it's right." "Both things can be true," I replied. She laughed. "Fair enough. Call me after." "I will." The Cascade room looked even more impressive than I'd expected when I arrived. Valet parking. A red carpet, which felt absurdly over the top for a birthday party. But that was Linda's style. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to scream success and sophistication. I walked in and immediately felt every eye skip over me. I was used to it. The invisible daughter. The one who didn't quite fit. A young woman with a clipboard checked my name off a list, looking surprised I'd actually shown up. She directed me toward the main room, where guests were already mingling. The space was stunning. Those floor-to-ceiling windows I'd heard about captured the mountain view perfectly. String lights crisscrossed the ceiling. Round tables draped in white linen filled the room. A small stage at the front held a podium and a large screen, clearly set up for speeches and presentations. That screen was going to be very useful. I spotted Dad almost immediately. He stood near the bar, laughing with a group of men in expensive suits. Business partners, probably. The people who'd helped him build Torres Family Dining into what it was. He looked older than I remembered. His hair had gone completely gray. Lines creased his face. But his smile was genuine, his posture relaxed. He had no idea what Linda and Jessica were planning. No idea his whole world was about to shift. Linda appeared at his side, elegant and cold as always. She whispered something in his ear and he nodded, turning to greet another guest. She scanned the room, and her eyes landed on me for just a moment. No warmth. No acknowledgement. Just a flicker of awareness that I'd made the mistake of attending before she looked away. Jessica was harder to spot at first. Then I heard her laugh, that distinctive sound she'd perfected for her social media videos. Bright and bubbly and completely fake. She stood in a cluster of younger guests, probably other influencers and hangers-on. Tyler hovered nearby, his hand occasionally touching her waist, marking territory. A waiter approached me. "Can I show you to your table?" I nodded, following him through the crowd. We passed the main tables, the ones close to the stage where Dad and Linda and Jessica would sit. We passed the secondary tables where business partners and close friends were settling in. We kept walking until we reached the very back corner of the room, near the emergency exit. A small table, a wobbly chair, and a basket of breadsticks that had clearly seen better days. The waiter had the grace to look embarrassed as he gestured to my seat. I sat down and examined the breadsticks. They were from Torres Family Dining. I recognized the signature rosemary seasoning. But these weren't fresh from the oven like the ones being served at every other table. These were leftovers. Probably from yesterday or the day before. Stale. Hard. The kind of thing you'd throw away rather than serve to guests. The message was clear. This is all you deserve. This is all you'll ever deserve. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the breadsticks, the empty table, the view of everyone else's backs. Posted it to my Instagram story with no caption. Just documentation. Evidence of how they saw me. My phone buzzed immediately. "Rachel. Are you kidding me? Breadsticks? I'm going to murder them." "Not yet," I typed back. "Let them think they've won." I settled into my chair and watched the party unfold around me. Guests arrived in waves. Waiters circulated with champagne and appetizers. Music played softly in the background, something classical and expensive sounding. Linda worked the room like a politician, air kissing and laughing at jokes that probably weren't funny. Jessica held court with her phone, taking photos and videos for her social media empire. Dad shook hands and accepted birthday wishes with genuine warmth. And I sat in my corner, invisible as always, with a USB drive in my bag that would change all of their lives. The irony of the breadsticks wasn't lost on me. Dad had built his empire on food, on the idea that everyone deserved a good meal, a place to gather, a sense of home. And here was Linda, using his own product to tell me I didn't belong. It would almost be poetic if it weren't so cruel. I broke off a piece of stale breadstick and took a bite. It tasted like cardboard and failure. I smiled, because soon, very soon, everyone in this room would know the truth. And Linda and Jessica's perfect little world would crumble faster than these terrible breadsticks. I sat with those stale breadsticks for what felt like hours, though it was probably only 30 minutes. The party swirled around me like I was a rock in a river, something to flow past rather than acknowledge. Guests laughed and clinked glasses. Someone made a toast to Dad's health. Cameras flashed. Jessica posed. Linda smiled that practiced smile that never reached her eyes. And I waited. Waiting was something I'd gotten good at over the years. Waiting for Dad to notice me. Waiting for Linda to show a moment of kindness. Waiting for Jessica to acknowledge I existed. Waiting for my life to start matching to the people who were supposed to love me. But tonight, the waiting had a purpose. Tonight, I was waiting for the right moment to burn their world down. A woman in a navy dress and pearl earrings passed my table, glanced at the breadsticks, then at me. Her expression flickered with something that might have been pity or might have been distaste. Hard to tell. She kept walking. At the main table, Linda was rearranging place cards, making sure everything was perfect for the photographs she'd inevitably post on social media later. The Torres family, so successful, so happy, so together. All lies but pretty ones. I watched her work and thought about the forged documents Rachel and I had found. Linda's signature on papers that would strip Dad of everything he'd built. How long had she been planning this? Had it started recently, or had she been working toward this moment for years? Maybe since the day she married my father, just 3 years after my mother died in that car accident. I was 7 when Mom died. Old enough to remember her laugh, the way she smelled like vanilla and coffee, how she'd let me help in the kitchen even when I made a mess. Not old enough to understand why she wasn't coming back. Dad had been wrecked. Completely lost. He'd thrown himself into work, expanding the restaurant business like it could fill the hole Mom left behind. And into that hole, Linda had slipped. At first, she'd seemed nice enough. Brought cookies to the house. Complimented Dad's cooking. Smiled at me with what I thought was warmth. But the mask came off quickly once they were married. Jessica moved in like a conquering army, claiming the bigger bedroom, the better toys, the spotlight. Linda made it clear that her daughter came first. Always. Forever. In everything. I learned to stay small. To not ask for too much. To accept whatever scraps they threw my way, and be grateful for them. By the time I was 10, I'd stopped expecting birthday parties or new clothes, or any of the things Jessica got without asking. By 15, I was working part-time jobs to buy my own school supplies. By 18, I was gone, living on scholarships and student loans and the desperate determination to never need them for anything again. Looking at those breadsticks, I realized Linda had been training me my whole life to accept less, to believe I deserved less, to think that invisible was the best I could hope for. She'd underestimated me. They all had. Movement near the stage caught my attention. Someone was adjusting the microphone, preparing for the evening's speeches. The program would start soon. Dad would say a few words. Business partners would offer congratulations and tell embarrassing stories. Linda would make a touching speech about family and legacy. And then, if everything went according to their plan, she'd have Dad sign some papers. Just routine business documents, she'd say. Nothing to worry about on your birthday, darling. Just a few signatures. My hand went to my bag, fingers brushing the USB drive. Not tonight, Linda. Tonight, everyone gets to see who you really are. A waiter finally noticed my empty glass and brought me water. Not champagne like everyone else was drinking. Water. In a plastic cup. I almost laughed. The disrespect was so blatant it looped back around to being funny. Thank you, I said to the waiter. And he startled like he hadn't expected me to speak. He nodded quickly and hurried away. Even the staff had picked up on my status here. The invisible daughter. The one who didn't matter. Jessica's laugh rang out again. And I turned to watch her. She'd moved to a different group of people, younger crowd this time, probably other social media types. Her phone was constantly in motion, capturing every angle, every moment. Everything was content for her. Everything was a performance. I wondered if she ever got tired of it. Of being on all the time. Of maintaining that perfect image. But then I remembered the video Rachel and I had watched, Jessica and Tyler casually discussing how to steal from my father. The boredom in her voice as she dismissed me as not really family. No, Jessica didn't get tired of performing. She loved it. Loved being the center of attention. Loved being the favorite. And she'd do anything to keep it that way, including destroying Dad's business and repackaging it as her own. Tyler caught me looking and his expression shifted. Suspicion maybe. Or just confusion about why the family reject was staring. I looked away, taking a sip of my plastic cup water. Let him wonder. In about an hour, he'd have much bigger things to worry about. The sun was setting beyond those floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the mountains in shades of purple and gold. It was beautiful. The kind of beauty that belonged in a moment that mattered, in a memory you'd want to keep. But this wasn't that kind of moment. Not yet. This was the calm before everything shattered. I thought about Rachel, probably sitting in her apartment right now, phone in hand, waiting for my text. We'd planned this carefully. I'd give her a signal once things started, and she'd be ready with backup copies of everything, just in case. Because we both knew that people like Linda didn't go down easy. They fought. They lied. They twisted reality until nobody knew what was true anymore. That's why the evidence had to be overwhelming. Undeniable. Public. A man in a gray suit approached the microphone on stage. He tapped it twice, and the feedback squeal cut through the ambient noise. Conversations died down. People turned their attention to the front. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention please. The man smiled, comfortable with the spotlight. I'm Richard Castellano, and I've had the pleasure of working with Robert Torres for 15 years. We're here tonight to celebrate not just a birthday, but a legacy. A man who built something remarkable from nothing. A man who turned his passion for food into an empire that brings joy to thousands of people every day. Applause rippled through the room. Dad stood, waving awkwardly, never comfortable with praise. Linda beamed beside him, playing the proud wife. Jessica filmed the whole thing, her phone angled perfectly to capture her own face in the foreground with Dad in the background. Always about her. Always. Robert, would you like to say a few words? Richard stepped back from the microphone, gesturing for Dad to take the stage. Dad walked up, his steps measured. He'd put on weight over the years, I noticed. Stress, probably. Or maybe just age. He gripped the podium and looked out at the assembled guests. His eyes swept the room and paused when they found me in the back corner. For just a second, something flickered across his face. Surprise maybe. Or shame. But then Linda touched his arm, redirecting his attention, and the moment passed. Thank you all for being here, Dad began, his voice steady but warm. When I opened my first restaurant 30 years ago, I never imagined it would grow into what we have today. 12 locations. Hundreds of employees. Thousands of customers who've become like family. He paused, emotional. This business has been my life's work. My purpose. And I'm grateful every single day that I get to share good food and good company with this community. More applause. Someone whistled. Dad smiled, more genuine now. I also want to thank my family, he continued, and my stomach tightened. Linda, who's been my partner in every sense of the word. Who keeps me grounded when business gets crazy. Who reminds me what really matters. Linda stood, pressing a hand to her chest in a gesture of humility that made me want to throw my plastic cup at her. The crowd cooed appreciatively. And Jessica, Dad went on, turning to where she sat. My daughter, who's built an incredible platform and brought so much attention to what we do. Who represents the future of this family and this business. Jessica waved, blowing a kiss to the crowd. People laughed. Someone shouted that they followed her on Instagram. I waited for him to mention me. To acknowledge that he had another daughter sitting in the back with stale breadsticks and a plastic cup of water. But he didn't. The words never came. He thanked his business partners. He thanked the staff. He thanked the venue. He thanked everyone except me. And I realized sitting there in my corner, that he probably didn't even realize the omission. To him, I'd always been so far in the background that forgetting to mention me was as natural as forgetting to mention the wallpaper. I pulled out my phone and sent Rachel the text. "It's time." 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Then a single word. Finally, Dad finished his speech and returned to his seat. Richard took the microphone again, introducing the next speaker, some business partner with stories about the early days of Torres Family Dining. I stopped listening. My focus narrowed to the USB drive in my bag, to the screen on the stage, to the moment that was coming. Linda stood and whispered something to one of the venue staff, a young guy in a black vest. He nodded and hurried toward the back of the room, toward the AV booth where someone was controlling the presentation system. This was it. My window. I stood up, and the movement felt significant even though nobody was paying attention to me. I was always standing up and sitting down and moving through spaces without anyone noticing. But this time was different. This time, I had something to say. I made my way through the tables, weaving between guests who were absorbed in the speech. Nobody stopped me. Nobody questioned where I was going. Invisible had its advantages. The AV booth was tucked in a corner near the kitchen entrance, a small space with a laptop and control panel. The guy in the black vest was inside, checking something on the screen. "Excuse me," I said, and he jumped. "Sorry, didn't mean to startle you." "It's okay," he said, smiling uncertainly. "Can I help you with something?" "I'm Emma, Robert's daughter. I wanted to make sure the presentation for later is all set." His expression shifted to confusion. "Presentation? Linda Torres asked me to set one up," I lied smoothly. "A tribute video for my father. She said someone would bring the file." "Oh," he said, glancing at his laptop. "I don't think I got that message." "Here," I said, pulling out the USB drive. "This is it. Can you load it? Make sure it's ready to play when the time comes?" He hesitated, and I knew I had maybe 3 seconds to sell this before he went to check with Linda. "My stepmother can be forgetful sometimes with all the party planning," I said, adding just enough exasperation to my voice to sound believable. "This is really important to my dad. She'll be upset if it doesn't work." The mention of Linda being upset did the trick. He took the USB drive and plugged it into his laptop. The files loaded. He clicked through the folder, seeing the video file titled Birthday Tribute. "Looks good," he said. "You want me to play it during the speeches? After the next few speakers, if that works. I'll give you a signal." He nodded, already moving on to the next task in his mind. I thanked him and slipped away, my heart pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. But nobody looked at me. Nobody questioned. I'd just planted a bomb, and they had no idea. Back at my table, I forced myself to breathe slowly, to look calm. The business partner finished his speech to warm applause. Another person took the stage, this one a woman who'd worked with Dad for years. She told a funny story about a health inspection gone wrong in the early days. People laughed. Dad laughed. Everything was perfect and warm, and exactly what Linda had orchestrated. I checked my phone. Rachel had sent another message. "I'm here if you need me." And then, because she knew me too well, "You've got this. Don't back down now." I wasn't backing down. I'd spent my entire life backing down, making myself smaller, accepting less. Tonight, I was done with that. Tonight, I was taking up space. The woman finished her speech and Richard returned to the microphone. "We have one more presentation before dinner," he announced. A special tribute video prepared by the Torres family. My pulse spiked. This was it. No going back now. The lights dimmed slightly. The large screen behind the podium flickered to life. And I stood up. Everyone's eyes went to the screen, not to me. But that was fine. They'd see me soon enough. The video started. Not with music or happy birthday wishes. It started with text on a black screen. White letters that were impossible to miss. The truth about Torres Family Dining. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Dad frowned, looking at Linda. Linda's face went white. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Turn that off," she said, her voice sharp. But the video kept playing. The first image appeared. A screenshot of a text message from Jessica to Tyler. Timestamp clear at the top. "Everything's set. The franchise agreements are ready. Dad won't even know until it's too late. Gasps. Whispers. People turning to look at Jessica, who'd gone pale, her phone forgotten in her hand. Wait, Dad said, standing now. What is this? The video continued. More texts. Linda to Jessica, make sure Robert signs the papers tomorrow. He won't read them carefully. Jessica to Tyler, we'll be millionaires before he figures it out. Tyler to Jessica, your mom's scary when she wants to be. That's why this'll work. The room erupted. Voices overlapping, people demanding to know what was happening. Linda pushed toward the AV booth, but Richard stepped in front of her, his face hard. I think we should all see what this is, he said. The video shifted to bank statements. Jessica's name highlighted on accounts receiving transfers of money. Tens of thousands of dollars. Then came the franchise agreements. Documents with Dad's forged signature at the bottom. Transferring the rights to Torres Dining Concepts to Jessica's LLC. This isn't real, Jessica shouted, finding her voice. Someone's lying. This is fake. But the video wasn't done. The security footage from the restaurant appeared next. Clear as day. Jessica and Tyler in that booth, papers spread between them. We need to move fast, Jessica's recorded voice said. Once the first franchise is open, he'll find out. But by then, we'll have signed agreements. He can't stop us. The audio was crisp. The video was clear. There was no denying it. Then came the recording from the wine bar. Jessica's voice again, casual and cruel. Dad would never tell Emma anything important. She's not really family. Not like us. Every head in the room turned to look at me. Finally, after years of being invisible, every single person saw me. I walked toward the stage, my legs steady, my voice clear. Hi everyone, I said. I'm Emma Torres. Robert's actual daughter. The one who's apparently not really family. Dad stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. Not really. Emma, what is this? His voice was strained, caught between confusion and rising anger. This is the truth, I said simply. Linda and Jessica have been planning to steal your business. To franchise it under Jessica's name, and cut you out completely. They've been forging your signature. Moving money. Setting up agreements with franchise owners. All behind your back. That's a lie, Linda snapped, but her voice was shaking. She's always been jealous of Jessica. She's making this up. I turned to the AV guy. Can you replay the security footage? The timestamp? He nodded, rewinding the video. The restaurant footage played again. The timestamp was clear. 2 weeks ago. The location was obvious. Dad's flagship downtown. You're going to tell me I faked that? I asked Linda. That I somehow created security footage from your restaurant? That I hired actors to pretend to be Jessica and Tyler? Linda's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Dad turned to Jessica. Is this true? Jessica's face had gone from pale to red, tears streaming down her cheeks now. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she said, her voice breaking. We just wanted to expand the business. To help you. By cutting me out? Dad's voice was rising now, genuine anger breaking through. By forging my signature? By stealing my life's work? It wasn't stealing, Jessica insisted. It was going to stay in the family, just under better management. The room went silent. That phrase, better management, hung in the air like a grenade. Tyler, who'd been trying to edge toward the exit, froze as head swiveled toward him. You were in on this too? Dad asked, his voice dangerous now. Tyler held up his hands. Look, Mr. Torres, this is a misunderstanding. Jessica and I were just exploring options. Nothing was finalized. Nothing was finalized? I pulled out my phone and held it up. I have copies of signed franchise agreements. 20 of them. All with your signature, Dad. All transferring rights to Jessica's company. All completely finalized. Richard stepped forward, his expression grim. Robert, I think we need to see those documents. Immediately. Dad nodded, looking stunned. He sank back into his chair, and for the first time in my life, I saw him look old. Truly old. Defeated. Linda made one last attempt to salvage the situation. She smoothed her dress and lifted her chin, trying to reclaim her dignity. This is ridiculous, she said to the room at large. A vindictive daughter with a vendetta trying to tear this family apart with doctored evidence and lies. I faced her directly. Then explained the voice recording from the wine bar. Explained Jessica's own words saying she's not really family. Explained the bank statements showing money moving into accounts you and Jessica control. Linda's composure finally cracked. Her face twisted with rage. You've always been a problem, she hissed. Always sulking in corners. Always playing the victim. Your mother dying doesn't give you the right to destroy this family. The room gasped. Several people stood up, their expressions shocked. Dad's head snapped up. Don't you dare bring her mother into this, he said, his voice low and furious. Linda seemed to realize she'd gone too far. She took a step back. Gregory, I didn't mean it like that. I meant. Get out, Dad said. What? Get out of my sight. Both of you. You and Jessica. Now. But Dad, Jessica started, her tears flowing harder now. We can explain. There's nothing to explain, Dad said. He gestured to the screen, which had frozen on a particularly damning text message. It's all right there. Everything you did. Everything you planned. You were going to steal from me. To destroy what I built. His voice broke. And you made me ignore my own daughter to do it. The room was silent except for Jessica's crying. Linda grabbed her purse, her movements jerky and desperate. You're making a mistake, Gregory. When you calm down, you'll see that Emma manipulated all of this. She's turned you against your own family. No, Dad said quietly. You did that yourselves. Security appeared at the edges of the room, summoned by someone though I wasn't sure who. Linda and Jessica were escorted out, their protests fading as they disappeared through the doors. Tyler tried to follow them, but Richard blocked his path. You're going to want to stay, Richard said. We have some questions about your role in all this. And I suspect the authorities will too. Tyler's face went gray. The fraud implications of what they'd done were apparently just now sinking in. Dad sat at his table, head in his hands. The party guests milled around awkwardly, not sure whether to leave or stay. Some were already pulling out their phones, undoubtedly texting friends about the drama they'd just witnessed. I stood on the stage, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation was draining away, leaving me hollow. I'd done it. I'd exposed them. But standing there looking at my father's broken expression, I didn't feel victorious. I felt sad. Sad for the years wasted. Sad for the family that could have been but never was. Richard approached me, his expression careful. That took courage, he said quietly. I did what I had to do, I replied. He nodded. Your father's lucky to have you. Even if he didn't realize it until now. I wasn't sure Dad felt lucky at the moment. But maybe eventually he would understand. Maybe eventually we could build something real. Not the fake family Linda had constructed, but something honest. Something true. The party was over. Guests were gathering their things, offering awkward condolences to Dad as they left. The beautiful venue with its mountain views and string lights felt hollow now. The setting for a celebration that had turned into an exposure. I walked down from the stage and approached Dad's table. He looked up at me, his eyes red. Why didn't you come to me first? He asked. Would you have believed me? I asked gently. Without proof? Would you have taken my word over Linda's? He was silent, and that silence was answer enough. I wanted to, he finally said. To believe you. But I've spent so long trusting her. Believing that she had my best interests at heart. She never did, I said. Neither did Jessica. They only ever cared about what they could take from you. I know that now. He rubbed his face. I'm sorry, Emma. For not seeing this sooner. For not seeing you. The apology landed softly, like the first snow of winter. Not enough to undo years of neglect, but a start. We'll figure it out, I said. The legal stuff, the business, all of it. You're not alone. He looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. You look like your mother, he said. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. Rachel texted me. How did it go? I typed back. It's done. Her response was immediate. Are you okay? I looked around the empty venue, at the abandoned tables and dimmed lights, at my father sitting alone with the wreckage of his life. I sent back. And I meant it. Whatever came next, whatever legal battles or family drama or rebuilding needed to happen, I would face it. Not as the invisible daughter. Not as someone who accepted stale breadsticks and corner tables. But as myself. Seen. Heard. Real. I gathered my bag and looked at Dad. Come on, I said. Let's go home. He stood, moving like every year of his age was weighing on him. Together, we walked out of the Cascade room, leaving behind the party that had turned into a reckoning. Behind us, the mountains watched in silence, witnesses to the end of one story and the uncertain beginning of another. The fallout from that night spread through Portland like wildfire through dry brush. By morning, my phone was exploding with notifications. News outlets had picked up the story. Local business reporters were calling it the scandal of the year. Someone had filmed parts of the confrontation and posted it online, and the video was racking up views by the thousands. I sat in my Pearl District studio apartment, coffee growing cold in my hands, watching the world react to what I'd done. The comments section was brutal. Some people praised me for exposing the fraud. Others called me a vindictive daughter, destroying her family for attention. Jessica's followers were particularly vicious, claiming I'd manipulated everything out of jealousy. But then there were the other comments. The ones from people who'd been in similar situations, who'd been made invisible by their own families, who understood why I'd had to speak up. Those comments made the hate bearable. Rachel showed up around noon with Thai food and determination. She let herself in with the spare key I'd given her years ago and found me still in my pajamas, laptop open to yet another news article about the Torres family implosion. You need to eat, she said, setting containers on my small kitchen table. And you need to stop reading the comments. I can't help it, I admitted. It's like watching a car crash. Except you caused the car crash, Rachel pointed out. On purpose. To stop a bigger car crash. I managed a weak smile. That's a lot of car crashes. She sat down across from me, her expression serious. How are you really doing? Honestly? I don't know. I thought I'd feel vindicated. Like justice had been served. And I do partly. But mostly I just feel tired. Rachel nodded. You exposed a major fraud conspiracy involving your family. Tired is probably the least of what you should be feeling. What's happening with your dad? I talked to Dad briefly that morning. He'd called from his lawyer's office, his voice strained and distant. The legal situation was complicated. The forged signatures meant Linda and Jessica could face criminal charges. The franchise agreements they'd set up were being reviewed to determine which could be voided, and which might have to be honored to avoid lawsuits from innocent third parties who'd signed contracts in good faith. Tyler had already hired a lawyer and was apparently trying to distance himself from the whole thing, claiming he'd just been following Jessica's instructions. Dad's business partners were supportive but concerned. The scandal had put a spotlight on Torres Family Dining that nobody wanted. Some were suggesting Dad step back temporarily. Let someone else run operations until things settled down. The idea was killing him. This business was his identity, his purpose, his legacy. And now it was tainted by association with fraud and family dysfunction. He wants me to come to a meeting tomorrow, I told Rachel, with his lawyers and business partners, to go over everything I found and explain how I discovered it. That sounds intense. It is. But I'll do it. I have to see this through. Rachel studied me for a moment. You know this is going to get messier before it gets better, right? Linda's not going to just accept defeat. She'll fight back. Hire lawyers. Try to discredit you. I know. Part of me was already bracing for it. Linda had spent years crafting her image as the devoted wife, the pillar of Portland society. She wouldn't let that crumble without a fight. And Jessica had an entire social media platform she could use to spin the narrative her way. I'd seen her latest post that morning, a tearful video claiming she was the victim of a misunderstanding, that her stepsister had twisted innocent business discussions into something sinister. The comments on that video were split between support and skepticism, but she was trying to salvage her brand, her reputation, her future. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello. Emma Torres? A woman's voice, professional and clipped. This is Jennifer Hartwell from Channel 8 News. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about the situation with your family. No comment, I said immediately. I understand this is difficult, but the public is very interested in your side of the story. Given that your stepsister has been quite vocal on social media, don't you think it's important to share your perspective? I glanced at Rachel, who was shaking her head vigorously. I appreciate the interest, I said carefully, but I'm not ready to do interviews right now. Everything I needed to say was in that presentation. If you change your mind, Jennifer continued, we'd love to give you a platform to tell your truth. She rattled off her contact information, and I wrote it down more out of politeness than actual interest. When I hung up, Rachel was already on her laptop. 3 other news outlets have reached out to you via email, she said. Plus 2 podcasts and something calling itself an online justice channel, whatever that means. Great, I muttered. Because what I need right now is more attention. The meeting the next day was held in a conference room in downtown Portland, in one of those glass and steel buildings that housed law firms and financial consultants. I dressed carefully, choosing a navy blazer and slacks that made me look professional and serious. I wanted them to see me as credible, not as the emotional daughter with an axe to grind. Dad was already there when I arrived, looking like he'd aged another 5 years overnight. His lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Morgan, greeted me with a firm handshake. Miss Torres, thank you for coming. Your father has filled me in on the basics, but we need to understand exactly how you came across this information, and what evidence you have. I spent the next 2 hours walking them through everything. The overheard conversation Rachel had witnessed at the cafe, finding Jessica's cloud storage, the security footage from the restaurant, the recording from the wine bar, the documents showing the forged signatures and fraudulent franchise agreements. I'd brought copies of everything, organized in a folder that Rachel had helped me prepare. Patricia took notes, asking pointed questions about dates and times and exact wording. How did you access Jessica's cloud account? She asked at one point. I hesitated. This was the tricky part. The part that could potentially make me look bad, or even open me up to legal trouble. My friend figured out her password, I admitted, based on information Jessica had posted publicly on social media. And you used that password to access her private files? Patricia's expression was unreadable. Yes. There was a pause. I felt Dad's eyes on me, but I kept my focus on Patricia. That could be problematic, she finally said. Unauthorized access to someone's digital accounts can have legal implications. Even if what you found reveals criminal activity. She sighed. It's complicated. The evidence itself is solid. The recordings, the documents, the screenshots. But the method of obtaining some of it could be challenged in court. Linda's lawyers might argue it was obtained illegally, try to get it suppressed. My stomach sank. So everything I found might not even be usable? Not necessarily, Patricia said. But we need to be prepared for that argument. The security footage from the restaurant is clean. That's your father's property, his security system. And the recording from the wine bar was made in a public place, so that's likely admissible. The cloud storage materials are the gray area. Richard Castellano, who'd been sitting quietly at the end of the table, spoke up. Even if some evidence gets challenged, what we've seen is enough to know the truth. The question is how we proceed. Can we void the franchise agreements? Patricia shuffled through papers. Some of them, yes. The ones where Robert's signature was clearly forged. But there are a few where Jessica had legitimate authority to sign on behalf of the company, because Robert had previously granted her limited power of attorney for marketing partnerships. Wait, what? Dad's head snapped up. I never gave her power of attorney. Patricia slid a document across the table. This suggests otherwise. It's dated 2 years ago. Dad grabbed the paper, scanning it quickly. His face went pale. I didn't sign this. This isn't my signature. So that's forged too? I asked. Likely, Patricia confirmed. But proving forgery takes time and expert analysis. In the meantime, some of these franchise agreements might be considered valid, which means we could be liable for breach of contract if we try to cancel them. The legal maze was dizzying. What had seemed straightforward when I'd clicked play on that video was now revealing itself to be incredibly complicated. Criminal charges, civil lawsuits, business liabilities, all tangling together in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. Dad looked at me across the table. I'm sorry you got pulled into this, he said quietly. You shouldn't have had to be the one to expose it. Someone had to, I replied. And you weren't going to see it on your own. He nodded, accepting the truth of that. Patricia spent another hour outlining the next steps. Filing police reports. Hiring forensic accountants to trace all the money movements. Contacting every franchise agreement holder to explain the situation. Preparing for the likelihood that Linda and Jessica would sue for defamation or emotional distress, or whatever their lawyers could think of. When the meeting finally ended, I felt wrung out. Dad walked me to the elevator. Can we have dinner? He asked. Just the two of us. I'd like to really talk. Not about the legal stuff. About everything else. I studied his face, seeing genuine regret there. Okay, I said. When? Tonight, if you're free. He named a small restaurant in the Alberta Arts District, not one of his own places. Somewhere neutral. 7 o'clock. I'll be there. Rachel was waiting for me at a coffee shop nearby, laptop open, working on a project but clearly ready to debrief. How bad? She asked as I slumped into the chair across from her. Bad. Some of the evidence might be challenged. Linda and Jessica will probably sue. The business is in chaos. And Dad wants to have dinner. Dinner is good, Rachel said. That's progress. Is it? Or is it just guilt? Both things can be true, she pointed out. Doesn't mean you shouldn't go. I ordered a coffee I didn't really want and filled Rachel in on all the details. She listened, occasionally asking questions, her mind already working through possibilities. You need a lawyer too, she finally said. Your own lawyer, separate from your dad's. For what? For protection. If Linda and Jessica come after you legally, you need someone in your corner. And if this whole thing somehow blows back on you for accessing that cloud account, you need representation. The thought hadn't occurred to me, but she was right. I'd been so focused on exposing the fraud that I hadn't considered I might need defending. I don't have money for a lawyer, I admitted. Rachel waved that away. I know someone who does pro bono work. Civil rights attorney, really believes in justice. Let me reach out. I felt a surge of gratitude for her. For being here, for thinking ahead, for having my back in all of this. What did I do to deserve you as a friend? You were nice to me in high school when everyone else thought I was weird, Rachel said matter-of-factly. And you're doing the right thing now. Even though it's hard. That's worth supporting. That evening, I arrived at the restaurant Dad had chosen right at 7. It was a cozy place, dim lighting and exposed brick. The kind of spot locals loved but tourists never found. Dad was already there, sitting in a corner booth, a glass of water in front of him. No wine. No beer. Just water. I slid into the seat across from him. Hi. Hi, he said. And then we both fell silent, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down. A waitress came by and I ordered tea. Dad ordered nothing, just said he was fine. When she left, he finally spoke. I don't know where to start. The beginning? I suggested. Or maybe the middle. Maybe the part where you forgot I existed. He flinched. I deserved that. Yeah, you did. Dad looked down at his hands. After your mother died, I was lost. Completely lost. I didn't know how to be a father on my own. Didn't know how to handle grief, mine or yours. So I threw myself into work. And that was wrong. It left you alone when you needed me most. I'd heard versions of this before, the explanations for why he'd been absent. But hearing it now, after everything, felt different. Less like an excuse and more like an admission. When Linda came along, she seemed like the answer, he continued. Someone who could help me figure things out. Who could provide stability. But she didn't provide stability for me, I said quietly. She provided competition. She made it clear from day one that Jessica was the priority, and I was just in the way. Dad nodded. I see that now. But at the time, I wanted so badly to believe we could be a normal family. That Linda and Jessica could fill the hole your mother left. So I ignored the signs. The way Linda treated you differently. The way Jessica got everything and you got nothing. I told myself it was normal sibling rivalry, normal step-family adjustment. But it wasn't normal. It was cruel. And I let it happen. Hearing him acknowledge it, really acknowledge it, cracked something open in my chest. Tears I'd been holding back for years threatened to spill. Why couldn't you see me? I asked, my voice breaking. I was right there, Dad. The whole time. Right there. And you looked right through me. I'm sorry, he said, and his own eyes were wet. I'm so sorry, Emma. I failed you. As a father, as a protector. I let Linda and Jessica push you aside because it was easier than confronting the truth. Easier than admitting I'd made a mistake marrying her. Easier than accepting that I'd chosen wrong and hurt my own daughter in the process. We sat there crying quietly, the restaurant humming with other people's conversations around us. The waitress brought my tea and retreated quickly, sensing this wasn't the time to ask if we wanted appetizers. Eventually, Dad wiped his face. I want to make this right. I don't know how, but I want to try. If you'll let me. I sipped my tea, letting the warmth steady me. It's going to take time. A lot of time. You can't just apologize and expect everything to be fixed. I know. But I'm asking for the chance to try. To be the father I should have been all along. I looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the regret etched in every line of his face. The genuine pain in his eyes. He wasn't perfect. He'd made terrible choices, prioritized the wrong things. Let me suffer when he should have protected me. But he was here now. Trying. That had to count for something. Okay, I said finally. We can try. But I need you to really see me, Dad. Not just when there's a crisis. Not just when you feel guilty. All the time. I need to matter to you. You do matter, he said firmly. You always mattered. I just lost sight of that. And I swear to you, Emma, I won't lose sight of it again. We ordered food after that, and the conversation shifted to lighter things. He asked about my work, actually asked with real interest, and I told him about recent projects. A brand identity I'd created for a new bakery in Southeast Portland. A website redesign for a nonprofit. Small jobs but meaningful ones. That's incredible, he said. You built that all on your own. Yeah, I said. I did. I had to. He nodded, understanding the implication. That I'd had to build everything on my own, because he hadn't been there to help. What happens now? I asked. With the business? With Linda and Jessica? He sighed. Patricia thinks we have a strong case for fraud charges. The forged signatures, the unauthorized transfers of money, all of it adds up to criminal activity. But Linda hired a top-tier defense attorney. Someone who specializes in white-collar crime. She's going to fight. And Jessica? She's claiming she was manipulated by Linda. That she didn't understand the legal implications of what they were doing. Tyler's throwing both of them under the bus, saying he was just the messenger. Dad's expression hardened. None of that changes what they did. What they tried to steal. The business might survive this, but it's going to take time and work. Some of the franchise deals can be voided. Others we might have to honor, and then sue for damages later. It's going to be expensive and exhausting. What about you? I asked. How are you holding up? He was quiet for a moment. I'm angry. At Linda for betraying me. At Jessica for being so callous. At myself for not seeing it sooner. But mostly I'm just sad. Sad that this is what my family became. Sad that it took almost losing everything for me to wake up. You didn't lose everything, I pointed out. You still have the business. You still have people who care about you. You still have me. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. That's the only thing that matters now. Making sure I don't lose you again. We finished dinner and Dad insisted on paying. As we walked out into the cool Portland evening, he turned to me. Would you consider coming to work with me? At the company? I blinked in surprise. What? I need someone I can trust, he said. Someone who understands the business but isn't tangled up in all the mess Linda created. You've got skills I could use. Marketing, design, branding. And you've proven you're willing to fight for what's right. I don't know anything about running restaurants, I protested. You'd learn. And you wouldn't be running them, not at first. But I'd like you there. Part of the team. Part of the family business that should have always included you. The offer was unexpected and overwhelming. Part of me wanted to say yes immediately. To finally have a place in Dad's world that wasn't just an afterthought. But another part hesitated, worried about getting pulled into more drama, more complications. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course. No pressure. Just know the offer's there whenever you're ready. We said goodbye and I walked to where I'd parked, my mind spinning with everything that had happened. From that night at the party to this dinner, my entire world had shifted on its axis. I'd gone from invisible to visible, from powerless to powerful, from forgotten to seen. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. How did it go? Better than expected, I typed back. He actually apologized. For real. Her response was immediate. That's huge. What happens now? I sat in my car, looking out at the city lights. Now we figure out how to move forward. One day at a time. Rachel sent a heart emoji. You've got this. Whatever comes next, you've got this. I hoped she was right. Because Linda wasn't going to disappear quietly. Jessica wasn't going to accept defeat. And the legal battles were just beginning. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I had solid ground under my feet. Like I mattered. Like my voice counted. And that was worth fighting for. I drove home through Portland's streets, past the coffee shops and boutiques, the food carts and galleries that made this city feel like home. Somewhere out there, Linda was plotting her next move. Jessica was spinning the narrative to her followers. Tyler was trying to save himself. And Dad was trying to rebuild everything they'd tried to destroy. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I'd faced them once. I could face them again. Whatever came next, I was ready. Because I'd learned something important that night at the party when I stood up and played that video. I'd learned that truth was more powerful than manipulation. That courage mattered more than comfort. And that being seen, really seen, was worth any price. The invisible daughter was gone. In her place stood someone stronger. Someone who knew her worth. Someone who refused to accept stale breadsticks and corner tables ever again. And that person, I realized as I pulled into my apartment parking lot, was someone I was proud to be. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.